like most people my age or younger, I Googled the word kindness on my computer. If you don't know what that is, you type in kindness and the computer starts up and it kicks out results. Now I got over 50 pages of results for a definition for the word kindness. So that tells me either as a society and as a people we really have this kindness thing down, or we don't have a clue what kindness is. The definition I found as Google defined it: a behavior marked by ethical characteristics, a pleasant disposition and concern and consideration for others. It is considered to be a virtue. It is recognized as a value in many cultures and religions. Gosh, now that we have that clear definition of what the word is and we all understand, let's go home. I didn't think so. We live in a world that is all about us. We're focused on us all the time. In fact, I think it's fair to say that we only do things if we can benefit from them. I consider this to be the main problem in our relationships with one another today. How can you have a relationship with someone else when it's all about you? I guarantee you my marriage wouldn't work very well in that kind of scenario. See, as a society, we don't know how to show each other kindness. So what happened? Well, let's say that we forgot how to show kindness over the years. My grandparents, these would be children of the 1920s and the 1930s, talked about helping each other. Talked about helping each other not because they wanted something from the other person, but because it made them look better. No, what they did was a pure act of kindness for the other person. Come on. As a member of today's society, we all have our reasons for not showing kindness, right? I tried showing kindness to someone once. All I ended up doing was getting hurt. I can tell you right now, I'm not about to do that again. What would happen if that was God's attitude towards us with His kindness? Well, look at it this way. We might say, well, I'll be kind to all those that are like me. But if they're different in any way, there's no way I'm showing that person kindness. Don't ask me to be kind to women. I was hurt by one once, and that's the end of my kindness towards them. I'll be kind to everybody but men. My first boyfriend doesn't deserve kindness from anyone. Be kind to everybody except for my neighbor. Why? Because he has a loud barking dog and I can't stand him. I'll be kind to those who share the same political views that I do, but as for those others, well, there's no way. Ladies and gentlemen, what is this practice of kindness by convenience when it fits our schedule? Is that really the kindness Paul was talking about when he listed it in the letter to the Galatians and listed it as a fruit of the Spirit? See, I think back on my life, one of the greatest acts of kindness that Janet and I can think of comes from people in various churches that we've been a part of over the years. Such as, my wife was ill one winter, and church people came, they brought food, they helped with the boys, they helped me with the cooking and the housework, the shopping, etc. These church people didn't have anything to gain from it. So why would you do it? Because it was the right thing to do. In the spring of 2014, we lost a family member here in South Dakota and had to leave Idaho right away to come home to attend that funeral. Church people came, they took over the duties at the house, they covered our meetings and community functions. These same church people checked on our progress throughout our trip back to South Dakota, checked on our status, I call it our emotional status, through the funeral, and monitored our return trip to Idaho. Why? Were these people special? Were they different? No. They're no different than anyone else. They just showed kindness as a characteristic of being a Christian. They put their fruit of the Spirit into action. What I want to know this morning is, as Christians, are we showing kindness to one another as Christ asked us to do? Is kindness a characteristic that people can see in us? And when they do they see Christ's kindness in our actions? Well, if kindness is a part of who God is, I reference 1 Samuel 20:14. But show me unfailing kindness, like the Lord's kindness, as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. Samuel, 1 Samuel, or Samuel itself, written sometime after the division of the northern and southern kingdoms, somewhere around 930 BC. The book named after the person God used to establish monarchy in Israel. What I want you to understand is that 1 and 2 Samuel, as we have it, was originally one book. This section of 1 Samuel depicts the Lord's choice of David as successor, and then describes David's long road as he's prepared for accession to the throne. But the passage does more than just the historical text, doesn't it? This passage, I hope, shows us something of the character of God, and that kindness towards his people is unfailing. And I thank God that he does not base his kindness on anything that he can gain from us. If you've read scriptures extensively, you know this idea of a kind God is a little difficult in our Old Testament. See, he will always be kind to his children, even though sometimes that kindness comes with a lesson. I can't tell you that kindness will always be easy. It will be difficult. One of the best examples I can give you of kindness in the Old Testament is the story of Jonah. Jonah traveled to Nineveh, where he wanted God to punish the people of Nineveh and bring destruction on them. But the people of Nineveh turned towards God. And instead of punishing them, God showed kindness to the people of Nineveh. What this did was upset Jonah because he wanted them to pay. Instead of being angry with Jonah, God provided what? Shade. Shade from a leafy plant that Jonah could protect himself under from the heat. That was an act of God's kindness. Great examples of God's kindness are seen throughout our scriptures. So don't take for granted that the God of the Old Testament is harsh or unkind, because the story of Jonah, in fact, shows us contrast to that. Jesus Christ came to be a living example to us. So we move on to the New Testament. And that is why in Ephesians 4:32, Paul defined, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ, God forgave you. Very quickly, Ephesians, of course, is a letter written by the Apostle Paul to the church at Ephesus. This is a church in Asia Minor. Now, I was going to leave it at that, but my mentor said, no, you better define that. Asia Minor is, of course, an area of what would be modern-day Turkey, written approximately 60 A.D. What I want you to understand is that Paul is talking about applying kindness to our lives. Paul tells them to be kind. The Greek definition reads as follows. This is a disposition of mind which thinks as much of its neighbor's affairs as it does its own. Whoa. So kindness is about looking outward towards others. Well, all the time as a society says, no, it's about me. Look inward. Forgive others, Paul says, just as God forgave you. So in one sentence in his letter, Paul lays down the law of personal relationships. Forgiveness. kindness. Treat others as Jesus Christ treated us. He sends advice to the church so that they would not only read the words, but in hopes that they'd put it in practice in their own lives. Christ forgives our sins. And what I want you to understand about that is in that act, Christ showed us kindness. If we're going to be kind to others, then this means that we'll have to forgive them as well. We'll have to forgive them for their wrongs, and then we hope they'll show kindness and forgive us. I hope the next time you come face to face with someone that you will show them kindness. If you've been attending Wednesday night, you've heard stories of our crusades in Idaho and in Rapid City. My family lived in a suburb of Boise, Idaho called Meridian. And the particular story, we were having financial difficulties, the family was. I was convinced that we weren't going to make it. Of course, like everyone, these financial difficulties hit us at the time of the holidays. See, what you need to understand is, as a Christian, I knew God was in control. I knew that He would stay with us and see us through the storm that we were in. And then something happened. Not long before Christmas, we got a call from the church asking us, and I quote, "We just happen to have an extra ham. Would you like it for Christmas?" Well, I knew we wouldn't starve. This was an act of kindness by the church, but after all, it was a church, right? Isn't that what churches are supposed to do? Before long, I got the mail and found a Walmart gift card in the mailbox. There was no name. There was no way to know where it had come from. It just appeared. One evening, a couple days before Christmas, our doorbell rang. And I went up to the door to discover that someone had purchased several bags of groceries. And they left it on our doorstep. No name, no card, no identification, no nothing. A pure act of kindness. See, they didn't have anything to gain from helping us. In fact, actually, they put more strain on their finances at a tough time of year to begin with by helping us. They did it just because they knew we needed it. They showed us Christ's kindness. A few years later, we had gotten financially on our feet, and Christmas time came around again. We had gained financial stability enough that my wife and I went to the boys and said, "Would you like to travel? Would you like to get some new things? Would you like to do things with the house?" And then we thought about the act of kindness that had been shown to us. See, I was active in the community, and I knew of a family not far from us that was in need. So we, one night over the cover of darkness, took some things to them and rang their doorbell and ran away. We didn't have anything to gain. We didn't do it to make ourselves feel better. We did it because we had experienced God's kindness. And in turn, we wanted to show God's kindness to others. I hope you have a better understanding of what Paul meant when he mentions kindness in his Galatians letter. More than having the knowledge of what Christians are supposed to do is one thing. But I encourage you now to take that knowledge and put it into practice with one another, with a complete stranger. Look for an opportunity this week to show kindness to someone that's in need. I remind myself, as I do you, that kindness, this act, has nothing to do with us. We should gain nothing from it if it's a true act of kindness. It needs to be all about the other person. And yes, I encourage you to be kind to people even if they are different than you. Even if they don't think like you, or even if they annoy you to no end. After all, isn't that what God does for us? Isn't that what Christ did for us? Amen.